The day I had the worst fight with my childhood sweetheart. He slapped me for the sake of the little girl he loves. And I, in a rage, broke 3 of his ribs. He was clamoring for a divorce, but I wouldn't agree. I thought we would keep wearing each other down like this until we died, but the slap in the face came too quickly. 3 months later, I fell head over heels for an innocent, puppy-like younger guy. He kept pressing me for an official title, so I had no choice but to pull that familiar number out of my blacklist. When the call connected, that little girl's playful voice came from the other end. "Rachel, it's too late. You know, even if you come groveling like a dog now, Caleb won't spare you a single glance." Facing the provocation, I just said calmly, "Tell Caleb, I want a divorce." The next moment, the phone on the other end seemed to be snatched away, followed by a rustling noise, and then came Caleb's voice, trying its best to control a tremble. He said, "Rachel, you dare." The year I hated Caleb the most, I hit his most beloved little girl, and in return, he slapped me and asked for a divorce. Over all these years, what he brought up the most was for me to learn to behave, to be a little more gentle and considerate like Lin Tion Tion. This was the first time Head brought up divorce. I didn't agree. I pinned him to the ground, broke 3 of his ribs, and then, before he could say another word, I grabbed his neck and choked him unconscious. Before Caleb's eyes rolled back and he passed out, my last words to him were, "Want a divorce? No way. If you're going to drive me crazy, then you'll have to bear the consequences yourselves. That Lin Tion Tion will only ever be the other woman for her whole life, and you two will have to live in my shadow for the rest of your lives." Back then, I had a whole belly full of plans laid out for myself, all ready for how we were going to torture and be entangled with each other until death. I've always held a grudge, biting my prey and not letting go. 3 years of marriage, and Caleb has turned me from someone who joyfully walked down the aisle with him into the crazy person I am today. This bitch and bastard have hurt me so badly. I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making sure they never have a good day. To that end, I've even prepared a house and land on the side for a long-term war. It's just that heaven never lets you know how the next step of your life is arranged. I thought I would spend my whole life getting revenge on Caleb, but I never expected it would only be the 3rd day. I found Owen, who had passed out from hunger, right at my doorstep. At that time, I heard that Caleb had woken up in the hospital and was screaming to all the visiting relatives and friends that I was a psycho. I excitedly put on makeup, picked out my most vibrant outfit, and prepared to go there to piss him off. But I never expected that just as I walked out of the courtyard gate, I'd kick a large, human-shaped, unidentified object. In a daze, I turned the person over and saw a youthful face. At the time, Owen had his luggage stolen, went to a supermarket to work as a temp unloading goods and got tricked into working for free for 3 days. The guy was already so hungry he was delirious. In a daze, that hand grabbed the hem of my skirt. I saw his lips move, and I couldn't help but lean in a little closer. Then I heard his voice, barely a whisper, "Mama." After a long silence, I couldn't help but ask, "Wanna play Valo?" No one answered me. He had already passed out from hunger. I only found out later. Owen calling out Mama that day was purely because he was so hungry. His life started flashing before his eyes. When he was a child, he was abandoned in a park by his birth mother. The last time he saw her, she was wearing a red dress just like this one. That day, when he collapsed from hunger in front of my door, he saw me squat down and lean in a daze, and thought his birth mother had come to take him to heaven. When he confessed this part to me, I couldn't help but throw my head back and laugh. Halfway through my laughter, when no one joined in, I suddenly realized it wasn't funny at all. Owen was squatting right in front of me, his pair of wet, round eyes looking at my neurotic face, with no anger, no embarrassment, nothing at all, only deep concern. He's very tall and big. When he stands up, his 1.9-meter height is very intimidating, but his behavior was so harmless. Seeing me look at him, he subconsciously tensed up, resting his head on the sofa armrest, and just looked at me with those watery eyes. He clearly didn't say a word, yet it was as if he had said everything. Realizing the malicious act I had just committed towards a soul so pure it was almost transparent, I felt troubled, but I didn't know how to apologize. 3 years of an unhealthy marriage only taught me to use offense and shouting to hide my own vulnerability. I spent all 3 years entangled with Caleb, almost forgetting that before I married her, I was once the proudest young lady of High City. That poised, confident, and graceful person seemed to have been forgotten by me in the deepest part of my memories. The me now is full of dissatisfaction with the world. I once thought I would forever be trapped in hatred, but Owen reached out, pawing at my hand like a puppy, until I opened my palm, and a pendant was placed in it. It was the one Owen wore all the time. That was a gift his parents gave him when he was just born. Back then, he was still doted on, but later, his father died in an accident, and his mother abandoned him after she remarried. All he had left was this pendant. It was the only good memory this world had given him. But now, he took off the pendant and placed it in my palm. He said, "This used to be the most important thing to me, but now you're the most important to me. I'm giving it to you, hoping you can be happy." After saying that, he pushed my fingers to curl them up, and then lightly kissed my clenched fist. At that time, it was the 3rd month Owen had been living at my house, with a mindset of teasing and toying with him. I wanted to see what on earth he wanted to get from me, but he didn't do anything. He just stood up, put on an apron, and went into the kitchen to make me a nutritious meal he had just learned to cook. I originally bought the kitchen spatula to use as a weapon to smash Caleb's head with when we argue. Held in Owen's hand, it seemed a bit small and awkward, but his movements were very nimble. Without a hint of clumsiness, a smile played on the young man's lips. The sunlight shone through, making those light brown puppy dog eyes glisten. For some strange reason, I walked up to him and couldn't help but ask why he was so happy. "Because I can cook for you." Just such a simple reason, yet it could have multiple interpretations. Because there was someone to eat the food he made. Because he had a stable environment where he could cook at his leisure. Or was it simply because he liked cooking for me? Facing those eyes that could so easily see through one's thoughts, I suddenly found myself unwilling to probe any deeper. Under my protection, Owen has successfully found a job, and no one dares to bully this fatherless and motherless, rather straightforward and kind-hearted poor kid anymore. He is 19 this year. When he was 18, he got into a pretty good school, but couldn't afford the tuition to attend, so he came to the city to look for a job, thinking big cities have more opportunities, but he didn't expect to get scammed right after leaving the train station. Fortunately, although he had a rough start, things are pretty good now. He got his new documents, wore the clothes I bought for him, and went to work full of motivation every day. He always came back carrying several big bags of groceries. He thought I was too skinny. Whenever he pinched my slender wrist, he wouldn't know how much force to use, and a deep look of worry would appear on his chiseled face. To be fair, my figure isn't petite. I even took up boxing just so I could beat the shit out of that scumbag couple, Caleb and Lynn Tion, with one punch. But unfortunately, Owen was too tall, and his build was large as well. The work-study jobs he did in the past were all manual labor. That's why he ate way more than the average person. So after his bag was stolen, he got hungry extremely fast as well. But now that he can eat his fill, he always has a faint, happy smile on his face. However, for how tall and big he is, he's actually a bit socially awkward and pretty sensitive. And if you talk to him a bit more once in a while, he'll get a bashful expression. According to his colleagues' feedback, Owen doesn't really communicate with others at work, but no one would think he's hard to get along with, because he's working all day long, whether it's his own work or someone else's. If you give it to him, he does it all. Unsurprisingly, Owen is friendly, sincere, and full of sunshine on the inside, completely different from me. The me right now is a bit too dark. What I think about most every day is how to torture my cheating, unfaithful husband and his little lover. Back then, I missed the chance to go to the hospital and show off to Caleb because I was afraid Owen would die at my doorstep. But that doesn't mean I've given up on tormenting Caleb. Giving up on that man who was my childhood sweetheart for 27 years, who once used his entire fiery youth to pursue me and protect me, and then quickly grew tired of me after we got married, turning around to fall in love with a young girl who looked a bit like me. I remember the last time we met was in Caleb's office. I had come to talk to him about a divorce. We'd been married for 3 years, and our honeymoon phase only lasted for one. For the remaining 2 years, I was constantly in self-doubt and inner turmoil. Later on, I could finally face this marriage properly, admit my own failure, and wanted to have a good talk with Caleb. But I never expected that Lynn Tion was hiding under his office desk. The two of them just interacted like that in front of me, exchanging glances, casually treating me as a part of their play. Lynn Tion even thought she was very well hidden, leaning against Caleb's leg, smiling slyly, and at the very moment Caleb tilted his head back with a sated look, his Adam's apple rolling as he let out a muffled grunt, strode right up, grabbed her by the hair, and yanked her out from under the office desk. Lynn Tion screamed as she took a slap from me, and her fair, delicate little face immediately became red and swollen. And at this moment, Caleb's voice came from behind. He called out to me, "Rachel." I subconsciously turned my head, but was hit so hard my vision went blurry, and it took quite a while for me to come to my senses. He looked down on me from on high, finally learned to fight for favor, have you? Too bad that the way you are now, you'll only look more and more pathetic. The harsh words came down one after another. My world fell into storm and chaos. I remember the first time Caleb confessed his feelings to me. He looked at me, his eyes sparkling, and said, "The way you hold your head up high so proudly makes you look like a princess. I want to protect you forever." But what came after was, "She's better at being meek and submissive than you. She knows how to please me. What about you? You need to show some sincerity and prove to me that you love me more than she does." Lin Tian was brought by him to important social events, timidly hiding behind him. The guests present looked at us standing so clearly apart and murmured amongst themselves. I still held my back straight and my head high. The giant crystal chandelier was like a lonely crown, but when I'd take off my wedding ring and turn to leave without any hesitation, he would chase after me, holding me from behind in a deserted corner. "What? You're really mad. Looks like my dear wife does care about me in her heart." His kisses fell on my neck one after another, his tone intimate and lingering. "I just wanted to make you jealous. How could she compare to you? You're the rose I personally tended to for so many years." He buried his head in my neck and chuckled softly. "The way my good girl is being stubborn and refusing to back down is so cute too." It was at that moment that I thought Caleb was a madman. I wanted to get out, but with our family's interests so deeply entangled, I chose to endure it time and again. In the end, I was taken advantage of more and more. When I came to my senses again, I had already pinned Caleb to the ground, holding the ashtray in my hand and smashing it on his body again and again, while constantly screaming, "I've been too nice to you, haven't I? You two are screwing around right in front of me without any shame, and you still dare to lay a hand on me." Caleb's face was a bloody mess, looking a bit scary. His little girl was cowering in a corner, trying her best to make herself invisible, not daring to even fart. "Rachel, if you don't learn your lesson, well, get a divorce." Even now, his gaze was still locked tightly on me, and he kept on threatening me. It was always him who provoked me, and then had savor my breakdown from his high horse. But now, looking at his face twisted in pain, I suddenly laughed in relief. I said, "Did you know, Caleb, that intentional assault gets a heavy sentence, but domestic violence only gets you a lecture. As long as our relationship still exists, I will torture you for the rest of your life." After saying that, I grinned widely, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. I said, "Divorce? In your dreams." I must have been laughing like a maniac, which is why I saw clear fear in Caleb's eyes. The moment my hand closed around Caleb's neck, I admit I had the thought of us perishing together, but was it worth it? To let him off so easily, to let him just die and be done with it? I wasn't willing. That's right. The only thing keeping me alive was my hatred for him. To this day, I refuse to turn back, and I'm unwilling to admit that my life has been completely twisted. Now, I'm a lunatic, a shrew. My reputation is in tatters, and I still have to be entangled with someone who doesn't love me. My hand started shaking uncontrollably again. The next second, a gentle touch pressed against my palm. I turned around and saw Owen resting on my knees. He slowly pried open my hand, which was full of nail marks from me digging into it. After trying to press my palm and offering me water didn't work, he just pressed his own cheek against mine, finally managing to pull me back from the emotional storm. Right now, the boy was staring at me without moving, with his big, round puppy dog eyes. I lowered my gaze to study that face, youthful and tender, yet with deep-set features and a bit of a mixed-race look. Owen was undoubtedly handsome. It's just that his eyes were too pure, making it hard for people to have any amorous thoughts when looking at him. His cheeks and the base of his ears were a little red, but the concern in his expression overshadowed his bashfulness. Seeing that I was looking at him, he seemed to finally summon his courage, took a deep breath, and asked pleadingly, "Stop bullying yourself, okay?" After he spoke, he gently cupped my other hand and placed it on top of his own head as if it were a treasure. When Owen first got home, that bristly hair of his, like green stubble, was great to touch. I joked back then that the condition for letting Owen stay was that he had to be available for petting whenever I wanted. And now, watching his clumsy and silly attempts to please me, looking at the clarity in the young man's eyes, I ultimately couldn't resist asking that question. "Owen, after lurking by my side for so long, what do you really want?" In the past, I also believed that soulmates existed between people. For example, Caleb and I, when he first saw me at the age of 5, he slipped a ring he had woven himself onto my finger, declaring I was the princess he would protect for his entire life. In those years when he loved me so flamboyantly, he put me on a pedestal. During our school days, almost no one of the opposite sex could get close to me. Correspondingly, Caleb was also very self-aware. There were plenty of girls who wanted to get close to him, but Caleb would just scoff, point at me not far away, and then say nonchalantly, "With Rachel around, would I even look at you?" Later, to pursue my dreams, I went abroad for further studies, and Caleb waited for me for 3 years just like that. Whenever he found the time, he would fly to London to be with me. When the first snow fell, he hugged me from behind, and word by word, he sincerely and plaintively confessed how much he missed me. Later, when I returned to the country to fight my father's illegitimate children for the family inheritance, he also supported me with all his might. Even when I successfully took over the first company, he said happily, "I'm someone who's latched onto a female CEO now. I'll have to work hard from now on to not be called a soft rice man." On the day his marriage proposal was successful, he had fireworks set off across the entire city for me. Under the romantic glow, he held my hand in both of his and swore he would use the rest of his life to cherish me. The sincerity in his eyes never seemed fake. It's just that I overlooked many details. For example, when he was hugging me and acting spoiled, he once mentioned, half-jokingly, how other people's wives change their personalities after marriage, becoming considerate and taking care of their husbands. "Can I get that kind of treatment?" He looked at me with expectant eyes. I poked his forehead with my index finger. "You want to have all the good things, don't you?" Back then, Caleb sighed as if resigning to his fate. "Yes, yes, yes, married a strong woman, so I have to follow her to conquer the world." But not long after, he became who he is today. The tactics he once used to pursue me, he used them all on Lin Tian. As if to intentionally get back at me, he bought Lin Tian a copy of every gift he had ever given me. And even more, he said, "She's so well behaved, these are the rewards she deserves." And when facing me, he sighed, "Xiao Yi, I said I would protect the princess for a lifetime, but fairy tales only go up to when the prince and princess get married. You're already married to me. What you need to do now is learn to stabilize and maintain our marriage, not think about that crappy company of yours all day and show your face in public." I stood on the spot, letting my blood freeze inch by inch. He seemed to appreciate my expression at that moment, savoring it bit by bit, with a look of satiated satisfaction in his eyes. The hurtful words continued. He said, "If time could turn back, I would still fall in love with the Rachel from back then without a second thought. Unfortunately, there is nothing about the you now that attracts me at all." However high he held me up in the past, that's how far he threw me away later. After that, I never believed in people again. Just like I don't believe the Owen of now. Don't believe a youth in his prime like him would willingly stay by my side, wanting nothing in return. I've been waiting for Owen to proactively ask me for something, resources or money. He has to be after something. As long as he asks, revealing his ugly side, revealing his weakness, then I would have a hold on him. This relationship would be completely under my control, and I could either keep him as a pretty little plaything or just use him and toss him. At least he should tell me what he wants. But Owen just looked at me quietly. Those light brown eyes of his were so bright and honest. He said, "I've already found a place. I can move out tomorrow once I get paid." So he's been planning to leave all along. Hearing this, I let out a cold laugh. Maybe my expression was too ugly, because he became very cautious with his next words. He peeked at my face, and his voice became a little hesitant. After that, "Can I still cook for you?" His voice got softer and softer as he spoke, until in the end, that fluffy head of his was bowed down low, not daring to look into my eyes. "Owen," I looked at him and suddenly spoke calmly, "do you want it?" The young man's body trembled, and immediately a deep blush shot up from his face to the tips of his ears. Seeing he wasn't talking, I suddenly curled my lips into a malicious smile. "Last time you were in the bathroom, I heard you call my name. I'm sorry, I'm sorry." The young man's eyes were brimming with tears, so ashamed he was almost about to cry. "You were so kind to take me in, but my thoughts are so filthy." I remembered that on the second day Owen moved into my house, I had someone investigate his past experiences, every single aspect, understanding it thoroughly. That's how I knew that he was still a blank slate to this day. In that instant, I suddenly lost the mood to tease him. My fingers lifted his chin, and I said bluntly, "Hold me." As the young man's firm arms wrapped around me, I was still a bit dazed. I thought at this moment I would think of Caleb, of the anger and heartache when he flaunted Lin Tian Tian in front of me, and that I would feel the pleasure of revenge. But I felt nothing. My gaze was completely captivated by the young man's eyes, which were filled with love and attachment. Those eyes curved slightly, his eyelashes trembled lightly, and when that full muscle was gently clenched, his breathing would become erratic, with a light tremor, like a puppy's whimper. I admit, This was the most relaxed and pleasant moment I've had in the past 3 years. No matter what Owen's purpose was, at least for now, I could use him to divert my attention and pull myself out of the mire of negative emotions. Besides, he's also clean, healthy, and good in bed, so I'm not really losing out, I thought to myself. My tightly bitten lips were brushed apart by the pat of his finger. The young man's movements were a bit rushed, his eyes filled with deep worry and tenderness. My voice could no longer be controlled, and of all times, my ex-husband's phone call came at this moment. For the past few months, I haven't had time to mess with Caleb, but he's not used to it and has to get right up in my face. Xiaoyi, that necklace you won at the auction for 30 million. I need you to bring it over right now. It goes perfectly with Tion's dress for tonight. I'll wire the money directly to your card. I promised to give Tion a gift like this. Seeing I didn't answer, his voice held a suppressed laugh. Angry again. Don't blame me, Xiaoyi. These don't suit you anymore. After all, this kind of jewelry can add to her charm, but it's useless on you. You can't attract anyone anymore. The next moment, I couldn't help but let out a soft moan. The voice on the other end of the phone froze, and Caleb sounded like he'd been instantly set off. Roaring through the phone, Rachel, where are you? What are you doing right now? None of your fucking business. A disjointed tone was pieced together from a hoarse throat. I cursed at Caleb. So fucking annoying. I agree to the divorce. Alright. Next time don't make harassing phone calls when I'm getting off. Caleb on the other end of the phone obviously still wanted to say something, but Owen leaned down, burying his head in my neck and whining, Sister, don't talk to him. He's mean. The calloused fingertip stroked all the way up my palm until it pressed to end the call. I completely turned off my phone, and only turned it back on 3 days later. At that moment, I was leaning in Owen's arms, his large palm kneading my calf bit by bit. I'd occasionally fidget to tease him, and he would blush all the way to the roots of his ears, not daring to look up at me. I originally wanted to tease him more, but then I remembered his ferocious and terrifying performance in a certain aspect, so I eventually put those thoughts away and focused on handling the unread messages on my phone. A small portion was from the company agents, reporting this quarter's earnings to me as scheduled. Most of the messages were from Caleb. During the 3 days my phone was off, he called me like a madman. When I didn't answer, he started texting me from different numbers. At first, he said, Rachel, what do you mean by this? You really dare to cheat on me? Later, the content of the text changed to, Xiaoyi, stop acting tough. You can't leave me. You'd rather turn yourself into a lunatic just to be entangled with me. Don't force yourself to do things you don't like. What does he mean? Things I don't like. Seeing this, I raised an eyebrow, pressed my palm against Owen's firm abs, and thought, I like this way too much. Okay, scrolling to the bottom of Caleb's texts. Face reality, Xiaoyi, you're no longer the high and mighty white moonlight you once were. No one but me is willing to love you forever. If you want to beg for my love, you should learn to behave. As long as you're willing to lower your head and love me, I'll always be behind you. If it were before, I would have already been provoked by these words to recklessly start retaliating against them, but now, I just felt it didn't sting at all, with my heart no longer on him. These words Caleb deliberately used to provoke me seemed laughably childish, especially after having a taste of a 19-year-old's young and strong body. I suddenly realized that fighting over a useless man like Caleb, who's no good after 25, and almost throwing away my entire life for him was really not worth it. I should have wised up sooner. People really do need to experience more to finally understand. Back then, I lost because I was too naive. Thinking of this, I raised my somewhat tired fingers and dialed Caleb's number. This time, the phone rang for a long time, as if he was deliberately putting on airs to put me in my place. Just as my patience ran out, the call was finally answered, and Lin Tianshan's cloyingly sweet voice came from the other end. Is that you, Sister Rachel? Asu just got out of the shower. He's not free to take your call. The little girl's tone was buoyant, with a touch of indescribable smugness. Besides, even if you wanted to apologize, it's too late. After all the trouble you've caused, Caleb already hates you even more. Tell Caleb, I agree to the divorce. A single, short sentence cut off Lin Tianshan's next spiel. What? As if she hadn't expected me to give in so easily. Lin Tian looked like she'd been struck by a massive surprise, her voice growing a bit rushed. The next moment, the phone on the other end seemed to be snatched away, making a rustling sound of fabric rubbing, and then came Caleb's low, angry voice. Xiaoyi, I've told you what the right way is if you want me to change my mind. Don't make me teach you a second time. I couldn't be bothered to waste my breath on him. I just said outright, Get the compensation in place, and in a month, your little girl can become official. Impossible. This time, it was Caleb's turn on the other end to firmly refuse, but I didn't have time to waste my breath on him here. Hurry up and get this done. My little boy is anxious for a title. I don't have time to chit-chat with you here. As if to digest what ID said, the air was silent for 2 seconds after the call was hung up, and then came the overwhelming flood of incoming call notifications. I coolly and decisively pulled out the SIM card, then used my backup phone to tell my assistant to contact a lawyer and draft a divorce agreement for me. After doing all this, I sat alone in the vast, empty room. Sunlight poured in through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows. The room was very bright, but I felt very cold. I curled my whole self up on the sofa, wrapped myself in the AC blanket, but I still felt ice-cold. Belatedly, I realized it was my own heart that was crying. I thought that after my dignity had been trampled on the ground for so long, now that I've won a round back, I would feel gratified, would feel victorious, but right now, all I felt was weary. For a moment, I felt I'd gotten old. My hair was clearly well maintained, my face clearly as it was before, but I just felt all the vitality draining from my limbs, the blood stopping its flow to my heart. After being drained of everything, I looked up at the ceiling, looking back on my life, looking back on the 3 years that I, because of my entanglement with a scumbag, dragged myself into the mud. Clearly, I wasn't like this 3 years ago. My father was fooling around everywhere, my mother would only cry, and a bunch of illegitimate children were waiting to fight me for the family inheritance. My maternal grandmother took me in and raised me until I was 10 years old. After she passed away, I was taken back. What I faced were the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th mistresses that my father let into our home, and a mother who would only, with red and aggrieved eyes, pull me to cry and complain, and then after I showed a bit of disgust, run to my father and tattle. Even our daughter can't stand your behavior. Can't you just change? Of course, she would make herself out to be completely blameless. She said, I still care about you in my heart. Can't you come back so our family of 3 can live a good life? Father didn't want to live a proper life, and he couldn't stand anyone questioning his authority. So, along with his flock of mistresses entering the home, came I don't know how many younger brothers and sisters. From then on, mother cried even harder. She still pulled me aside to cry and complain, but I never showed a single crack again, forever flawless. Over these years, even as the unfavored daughter of the original wife, I still managed to build my own reputation within the high society circles of High City. I fought my way through the plots of my biological father and a group of scheming younger siblings. I pried 3 companies away from my father, who was in his prime, and managed them to thrive. Before that sad marriage began, I was the perfect young lady praised by everyone. That marriage turned me into a joke. In the past, I probably would have made a clean break and cut my losses long ago. But why? Why did I get so sucked in? I pressed my palm against my forehead, racking my brain, but what came to mind was the year I was 10, when I had just been brought back from my grandma's house, facing an unfamiliar front door, and a group of adults waiting to see me make a fool of myself. Caleb suddenly appeared from behind me. The look in his eyes was so passionate and sincere. He said, "It's you, little princess. I've been waiting for you." He also said, "My mom said that this whole household of yours are no good people. They want to hurt you, but don't be afraid. I will always protect you." So it was because I was too young that I took the most casual of promises to heart. The weakness I exposed back then later became the knife that stabbed me the deepest. I closed my eyes, letting a tear seep out from the corner. In fact, all these years, the one protecting me has always been myself, yet I've taken such poor care of myself. It's not worth it. It's really not. A warm touch brushed against my eyelid, my eyelashes fluttered, and I gently opened my eyes. My gaze met a pair of clear eyes. Owen was standing in front of me, his face full of worry. He was still holding a food tray in his hands. "I just went to cook," he said. "Sorry, I shouldn't have left you alone." The young man gently set down the meal in his hands, then sat beside me, his voice very quiet. "Can I hug you?" I nodded. Immediately, he clumsily wrapped his thick, strong arms around me. Owen was so careful. Every muscle in his body tensed up, like he was afraid I'd shatter in his arms. This was a hug without any aggression. He turned himself into my pillow. When my head nestled against that firm chest, I heard his heartbeat through the skin and flesh, thump after thump, and my fingertips gradually began to warm up. He held my wrist, his heart aching as he tucked it against his chest. "Don't bully yourself anymore," he said. This was the second time he had said something like this to me. "You can use me, as long as it makes you happy. Anything is fine." I looked at that young face filled with sincerity. His eyes were still clear, holding a fiery affection. This thing called affection is the most unreliable thing in the world, but it can also be used for short-term healing, can't it? At least the current Owen will be a good emotional outlet. I think. I can feel myself, right now, slowly walking out of this emotional predicament. And the crazy voice in my head that was always screaming for revenge is gradually returning to reason. For the past 3 years, I have let myself grow sharp spikes, all for the sake of mutual destruction with others. And now, I just want to live a better life, because someone wants me to live better. That moment I was once again lost in thought. Leaning against Owen's chest, I fell into a snow-white world. In that instant, the world had no Caleb, no Lin Tian, and not even Owen. I'm the only one standing in the curtain of rain, looking at myself. Don't let yourself down again from now on. I held out my hand, and made a promise to myself. A promise for the day we'd signed the divorce agreement. Caleb didn't show up. I had my assistant check his location. Then I stormed into his usual bar. Caleb was in a private room, holding Lin Tian in his arms. When I got there, he was already half drunk. Seeing me arrive, he raised an eyebrow, but spitefully refused to look at me. Instead, kissing the Lin Tian in his arms, he spoke as if delirious. You're better than her. Her heart is made of stone. I walked straight up to him, slapped him across the face, then threw the divorce papers at his head. Rachel, he was just pretending to be drunk a moment ago, but now there was clear anger on his face. Are you awake? If you are, then sign it. I looked down at him and spoke in a cold tone. I won't sign. This time, it was his turn to refuse no matter what. Do you really not understand what I mean? All I want is for you to be a little gentler, a little more obedient, and you have to blow things up to this point. Back when I was chasing you, I was so humble and subservient for so long. Why can't you just bow your head once? The more he spoke, the more agitated he got, staggering to his feet wanting to argue with me, and I slapped him across the face again. I looked at him, and with a cold smirk, I said, that's because you were cheap back then. I'm not as cheap as you. I can't put on a fake face, and then force others to change when I can't keep up the act anymore. Hearing this, Caleb stared at me, looking extremely disappointed. Finally, he sighed and said, Rachel, no wonder your parents don't like you. He's always known how to hit me where it hurts. Too bad those words couldn't hurt me anymore. Just as I raised my hand to slap for the third time, Lin Tian got in front of him. Sister, it's all my fault. Blame me. Just don't bully Caleb anymore. Caleb was behind her, a sneer just starting to form on his face, when a broad, thick hand steadied me. Owen held my palm and blew on it gently. Does it hurt? In the dim light, his eyes were startlingly bright. Caleb's face darkened. Xiaoyi, give me an explanation. I ignored him, just pinching Owen's cheek. After we're done with the divorce stuff in a bit, I'll take you for a drive. Rachel, having been ignored, Caleb was a bit displeased and shouted my name. Sign it. I'm in a hurry. I turned around and looked at him coldly. Caleb carefully studied my expression, completely shocked and uncertain. It wasn't until he confirmed I was serious that he got a little angry. You're doing this for a piece of trash like him. What's so good about him? He's young, and he knows how to be submissive and please me. You know, knights have an age limit too, I said with a smile, throwing his own words back at him. Back when you wanted to divorce me because of Lin Tian. My reason is the same. Since there are no feelings left anyway, why waste each other's time? You know perfectly well I'm not. His lips trembled, and when he saw the mockery on my face, he suddenly grabbed the divorce papers on the table and tore them to shreds. I'm not signing it, Rachel. You and I are going to be entangled until death. As he said this, he waited for my response with anticipation in his eyes, but I didn't spare him another glance. I pulled Owen and walked out, my tone casual. Then let's talk about it next time. My little boy is hungry. I'm going to take him to eat. Just as I stepped out of the private room, a clatter of things falling to the ground came from behind. It was only when I was leaving that I noticed Owen's cheeks had turned bright red. He looked at me, blinking his eyes innocently. Big sister, I'm not a little boy anymore. I can prove it. He looked genuinely confused, staggering to his feet and walking over to me. The puppy's tail was about to stick up. I know. I raised my hand and ruffled his messy hair, then changed the subject. You have to work tomorrow, so don't work too hard. Mainly, I was the one who didn't want to get too tired, but he was very proactive, following my palm to kiss my fingertips. He just crouched in front of me like that, his moist gaze clinging to me, and his voice was a bit aggrieved. It's no trouble, I've still got more to give. On an impulse, I hooked his tie, and he leaned forward with the pull. Get in the car. My voice was a little hoarse, and the next moment he swept me up into his arms. Caleb didn't agree to the divorce, and I didn't go looking for him again. I just quickly resumed my social life. At those kinds of dinner parties where socialites gather, I made a showy appearance with Owen, just like Caleb used to do. His brothers saw this, their expressions awkward, and asked their sister-in-law what was going on. I remembered they called Lynn Tion little sis-in-law, so I smiled nonchalantly and introduced, "This is your little bro." In less than half a day, everyone in Haching's upper-class circles knew that I'd cheated on Caleb. When Caleb showed up at my door fuming, my eyes lit up. "That watch I gave you before, give it here. I'll buy it back at the original price. I want to give it to Xiao Ku as a gift. You know, that watch is the youthful and energetic model. You're already an old onion. It's not suitable for you to wear anymore." Caleb's expression froze for a moment, and then he recalled where this watch came from. His expression was a bit strange, but he finally gave in. "Do you have to make things so ugly with me, Xiao Yi? The whole of Haiching is laughing at us right now." "I don't care." I shrugged. "It's not the first time I've been a laughingstock. It's just that before, they were laughing at me alone, and now it's two of us." Caleb was about to say something else when Owen suddenly appeared, still wearing a kitty apron. Seeing Caleb, he was a bit at a loss, and cautiously tugged at the corner of my clothes. "Jia, Exuzbanja's face looks so bad, should we make extra food for him?" When Caleb heard this, his expression became even uglier. "I didn't bring Lin Tian today, which already shows my sincerity. Xiao Yi, let him go." His voice was hoarse, holding back his anger, suddenly being cued. Owen pointed at himself with the ladle in disbelief. Then he got angry too, but he still held back his anger to reason. "Not bringing a mistress isn't something to be proud of. You don't have to keep mentioning it, and you're not the other man," Caleb retorted sarcastically upon hearing this. But Owen was also very firm, indifferent. "What I have for Sis is true love. Sis likes my body, I can keep her. I've got what it takes." Caleb was about to go crazy with anger. He asked me, "Rachel, is there nothing to talk about?" I looked at him and said lightly, "If you don't want to be a joke to more people, you'd better sign it quickly." The talk that day still ended without any resolution. Later, Owen went home and brooded for a long time because he was called the other man. I ignored him. At this point, I don't plan on getting married again. Demanding an official status was just my excuse to ask for a divorce. Owen can leave whenever he wants. I won't stop him. But Owen coaxed himself into a good mood that night. I didn't know at the time. I'm not the other woman. Even if I am, they can hit me. And after getting beaten I'll keep on being one. Hee. Just like that. I continued to parade around with Owen. Either I'd buy a cruise ship for him to set off fireworks, or I'd ostentatiously give him a high-profile do-nothing job at the company our two families jointly invested in, with the same share as Lin Tian. In private, Owen transferred the ownership of all the assets he received back into my name. On the surface, he got more and more immersed in the role of the swaggering male mistress. As soon as he saw Caleb, he would glare fiercely, acting extremely pretentiously. I wanted to laugh watching him, but it was rare for the kid to be happy, so I just let him do his thing. The first person who couldn't stand it anymore was Caleb's mother. She found a time to meet with me, and her words were filled with accusations against me. Once, I was the excellent daughter-in-law she had carefully chosen. Now, she felt I was an embarrassment to her. Hearing this, I smiled a little. I'm just doing what Caleb did to me. How come when he did it, everyone thought it was normal, but now that it's my turn, no one can stand it? Joe's mother froze upon hearing this, and her face immediately turned cold. "Everyone says you've become rebellious and absurd lately." I didn't expect it to actually be true. "How is this rebellious?" I heard this and leaned back on the sofa. "Caleb has assets, and so do I. Caleb is a CEO, and so am I. So if he can keep a young girl, what's wrong with me keeping a young boy?" Joe's mother wanted to say more, but I cut her off. "From the very first day Caleb and I were married, you've been setting rules for me. Everyone wanted me to bow down to Caleb. Why? In what way is he nobler than me? Or did you think that by doing so, I would later obediently let your good-for-nothing son leech off my fortune? You." Joe's mother was furious, picking up her teacup to throw it in my face, but I grabbed her wrist. I closed in on her a bit, lowering my voice. "You don't know, do you? I beat your son every single day. If you don't show some respect, I'll beat you too." "Rachel, don't go too far." Caleb appeared from behind the screen in the tea room, his face dark. "You want a divorce, right? Let's do it now. Just don't bully my mom." He gritted his teeth, shielding his teary-eyed mother behind him. After holding out for so long, Caleb finally gave in. but when it came to dividing the assets, he wanted to talk to me alone. Sitting at the negotiation table with Caleb again, I first checked the cameras inside the room. He looked at me, a bitter smile on his face. "You don't trust me that much." I didn't answer, only responding with a cold smile. "From our younger days until now, it's been a complete mess. We already have nothing left to talk about." But he said, "If I tried to make you stay now, would you come back?" I lifted my eyelids to look at him. "No, actually, I never wanted it to come to this." Caleb looked at me, his gaze sincere. "I just hoped you could pay a little more attention to me, love me a little more, shall we? I don't want to lose you." "Is it that you don't want to lose me, or you don't want to lose the Sue family behind me?" I asked him. "I don't want to lose you." This time, Caleb answered almost adamantly. He said, "Rachel, you're the person I've dreamed of marrying since I was a boy. Marry and bring me home, then humiliate and wear me down. Then you really are despicable," I said, and then pushed the divorce agreement forward. "Once you've made up your mind, just sign it." But unexpectedly, he pushed everything onto the ground. I propped myself up with the table and stood, looking at him, my eyes obsessed. "Shall we? Do you know, you've become as radiant now as you were in the past." Sure enough, even after seeing you 100 times, I'm still mesmerized by you. After saying that, he suddenly turned and pulled open the window, climbed up onto it and looked back at me. "I told you, Rachel, you're the person I've wanted to marry since we were young. How could I possibly let go so easily?" A storm was brewing in the depths of his eyes. "If you're going to leave me, I'll jump from here. The office is on the 4th floor, and there's a green belt below." Caleb most likely wouldn't die from the fall. At most, he'd be laid up in the hospital for a few months. I recalled what I'd previously heard from a friend. Caleb was planning to use a self-inflicted injury ploy to trick me into giving up on the divorce. Seeing through his trick, I said indifferently, "Caleb, let it go. This is really pointless. You like the me who is dazzling out in the world, yet you also want me to contain my radiance and bloom only for you. That in itself is a contradiction." "It's okay. I can change." Caleb's voice trembled, tinged with a plea. "I don't want you to change anymore. I'll change. I'll only have you from now on. I'll cherish you just like before, and you won't have to see my mom again. Come back, and you can do whatever you want in the future." "Okay." When he saw I wasn't answering, he got anxious. "Have you really fallen in love with someone else? You can just stand there and watch me die in front of you. Is that pretty boy more important than me?" Before he could finish speaking, my phone rang with an incoming call. It was Owen, probably asking what I wanted to eat today. "Don't answer." Caleb's gaze was fixed dead on my phone, and he pleaded, "Don't answer his call. Stay, shall we? Let's have a proper talk." "Okay, Caleb, I remember you told me before that once someone stops loving, it's useless even if you die in front of him." I didn't look at him, the corners of my lips curling up slightly as I replied to Owen's message. Then I put away my phone, turned around directly, and only coldly threw out a sentence. "Come down when you've had enough of your drama. Your tricks are ridiculous." Upon hearing this, Caleb froze on the spot, as if he couldn't believe it. He screamed, "Rachel, you dare to not love me? Weren't you going to drag me to hell with you even in death?" But my steps leading away didn't stop. Behind me, Caleb's tone turned vicious. "Do you think you can just quit, Rachel? If I can't have you, I'll destroy you." Hearing this, I stopped in my tracks and looked up at the camera above, but Caleb laughed out loud. "The camera has already been tampered with. If something happens to me today, you'll be charged with attempted murder. Rachel, the things you've been doing these past few days are way more high profile than me, and when the time comes, your reputation, along with the Sioux Corporation's reputation, will be ruined. You won't be able to protect your small company, and for the rest of your life, you'll still only be trapped by me." After he said that, he let go, even leaned backward, and fell straight down. Hearing this, I sighed, and pulled out the camera ID, installed myself from the flower bush on the side. At this point, how could I possibly trust him again? He must have made some preparations. A scream came from downstairs. I walked outside and saw Caleb lying on the ground, fresh blood continuously seeping from the back of his head. The nearby passerby was already so scared they had collapsed limply on the ground. Seeing this, I kindly made a phone call and called an ambulance for him. Caleb was paralyzed. He damaged his central nervous system in the fall. He can only lie in a hospital bed for the rest of his life. I was hit by a huge, pleasant surprise and hurriedly put on some exquisite makeup to visit him. When I arrived, Lin Tian was sitting by the hospital bed, whimpering and crying. She was scared of being slapped by me, so when she saw me come, she was like a mouse seeing a cat. Muttering as she moved to the side, I didn't pay him any mind, sat by Caleb's bed and started crying. How foolish, hubby, they say getting a mistress will break up the family and lead to ruin. Look at you now, aren't you half dead? Owen also chimed in from the side. How foolish, big bro, you've wrecked a perfectly good family, and now you're paralyzed too. Caleb's eyes widened on the hospital bed, but he couldn't say a single word. Jomu rushed over at this moment. Weren't you going to divorce my son? Take this wild man and get the hell out. Who allowed you to show up in my son's hospital room? Hearing this, I blew on my nails and said nonchalantly, what are you talking about, mother-in-law? Caleb and I have a very good relationship. Now that something's happened to him, I certainly can't leave him. After all, both he and his company need me to take care of them. Hearing this, Jomu's eyes widened, rolled back, and she passed out. As for Lin Tian, I looked at her. Caleb has no chance of being cured. I'll transfer him to a regular ward in a few days. Before that, I want to see everything he ever spent on you returned. Lin Tian was obviously unconvinced, but I just lifted my hand, and she immediately nodded with teary eyes. As for Caleb, I sat back down by the bed and tucked in the corner of his blanket for him. I then took out that unsigned divorce agreement and waved it in front of him. Want this? He stared with all his might. A heh, sound coming from his throat. Seeing this, I got the hint, and right in front of his face, I tore the divorce agreement to shreds with a rip. Rip, I said. I get it, hubby, no divorce, just like you've always said, no divorce. With that, I chuckled and leaned down to his ear, and I said, hubby, you have to live well, at least outlive your mom first, that way when you die your money will be all mine, no need to share it with others. In that instant, tears welled up in Caleb's eyes. I cried too, tears of being moved, grateful to the heavens, and also grateful to myself. With so many mutual friends, how could I not know that Caleb was planning to pull a self-pity trick to manipulate me? He felt so sorry for himself. He specially laid thick grass on the spot where he planned to fall, and there were even soft cushions inside. I was just kind enough to replace those few soft cushions with hard rocks. Originally, this lawn sometimes had these things anyway. It's just that Caleb had cleared them all from that spot downstairs. He wanted to ruin my reputation. I wanted to cripple his body. Anyway, it was a case of tit for tat. The main thing is, I didn't expect God to be so good to me. He happened to land headfirst right where I put the rocks. To reward Caleb for his thoughtfulness, I said with a beaming smile, from now on, how about we let the most obedient and pleasing Tian take care of you? She loves you so much. She definitely won't mind that you can't take care of yourself. And she definitely won't let you get bedsores. Caleb's eyes widened, so I took that as his agreement. In half a month, I used ruthless methods to consolidate Caleb's assets. When Owen came to say goodbye to me, I asked him if he had made up his mind. He nodded. I was always so worried about you before, but now that you're doing so well, I have nothing left to worry about. He wanted to go out and make a name for himself. At 19, always being the other man was not a solution. Hearing that, my heart still softened, and I had my secretary transfer 7 million into his account. When I was drowning in a sea of hatred, unable to pull myself out, he appeared in my world like a gift from heaven. I relied on his comfort to get out of my lowest point, and he treated me sincerely, so he deserved to be repaid. If you run into trouble, you can come back and find me. The young man nodded and smiled, but I knew, with his pride, that day would probably never come. That's right. As things stand now, maintaining my marriage with Caleb is the only way to maximize my benefits. And Owen is still young, and his future is also long. I won't give him an official title just to force him to stay by my side. He also knows that the current me has already walked out from the haze of the past, and that there are more important things now. When he left, he was still reminding me to remember to eat properly. I sat in my high-rise office, looking at the river view outside. I guess this is probably the legendary white moonlight. I made a call to my secretary. The old man wants to talk cooperation. Tell him to clean up his own philandering debts first. My once high and mighty father has now become humble towards me. I guess this is the standard package for a domineering CEO: wealth, loneliness, and a white moonlight who has walked away. Maybe later on, there will even be a romantic and melodramatic reunion. Fortunately, the current me doesn't have stomach problems, and I also know how to use all available resources to treat myself well, not craving affection, and no longer trapped by hatred. The way things are now is very good.